Welcome to the Purpose and Profit Club podcast for nonprofit leaders, mission-driven creatives, and social entrepreneurs. Get ready to stop dreaming and start doing. Here, ideas become action. We prioritize purpose and profit. You ready? Let's go. Well, hey you. Today's podcast is a recording of a class that I recently taught that I had to share with you. In this class, I teach you a concept of gold medal thinking. Okay, so what are the strategies you need, but also what is the mindset or the purposeful way you need to think so that those strategies will work? If you're wondering, what the heck do I need to do this year to double down on, to increase revenue, to increase your bottom line, to increase customer or donor acquisition, client acquisition, this is the podcast for you. And if you're also wondering, do I need to do that thing anymore? Can I quit doing all these other marketing tools that aren't really working? Do I really have to start a TikTok? Do I really have to do any of this? I'm going to answer all of that in this class. In it, I mentioned a couple of different ways to work with me. The first thing I mention is a program called Easy Emails for Impact, which I'm obsessed with. Everybody needs to go through this program. If you're interested in learning about it and enrolling in it, you can at any time. I taught it live. However, you can join us and enroll at any time. I want you to go to splendidcourses.com/easy emails for details about that. I also mentioned my one-on-one coaching program. If you're interested in coaching with me one-on-one, simply go to splendidatl.com/book to book a discovery call with me. The last thing I want to tell you about is a really exciting giveaway we're doing. We're doing a giveaway to kick off this podcast, and all you have to do to enter is rate and review and subscribe to this podcast. Once you leave me a review, just take a screenshot of it and DM me that screenshot over at Splendid Consulting on Instagram. Send me a DM of that screenshot and you will be entered to win in this epic giveaway valued at thousands of dollars. We're doing more than one winner because why not? That's more fun. So simply rate and review and subscribe to this podcast, screenshot it, and send me a DM over on Instagram at Splendid Consulting. All right, let's go. So let's start with this. This morning, I went to my son's elementary school holiday program, and it was really cute. He's in second grade. And so, we're all kind of in the gym and we're all doing things. And he says to me, Mom, I'm going to be on the second riser. Like, okay, got it. Second riser. I'll look. And it reminded me as he was telling me that last night, as I was falling asleep, it reminded me of when I had something similar and I was in maybe like fourth-ish grade. And I was in choir and we had to do the performance. And our choir director, she was so specific. She was like, no yawning. You're not allowed to yawn. She used to say, yawning is contagious. If you yawn, it's going to be like a domino effect. One kid yawns and everybody yawns. You cannot yawn. And I was thinking about that. And I'm with the state of things, with our world, with our industry. You have to be really cognizant and watch the yawning. Except for us, it's not yawning. It is the water cooler conversations. It's the conversations about how hard it is. It's the conversations about, yeah, Giving Tuesday wasn't good for me either. Yeah, I heard it's really bad out there. Yeah, it's harder. There's less giving capacity than ever. You have to really watch that, because if we were all in a room together right now and I yawned there's 22 people on here, it would start with like one or two of you and it would literally trickle. And if I spent an hour on this workshop with you and talked about how challenging the next 12 months would be, regardless, like even if we weren't in a recession, right? If I just decided to have that as the topic, by the end, we would all leave feeling depleted, right? So I want you to first really think about watching for the yawning, like watching for those moments. Sometimes I just walk away. Like if I'm in those moments in a situation where people are just yawning, right? I'm like, no, and it's the same thing with our phones. Are we doom scrolling? Are we taking in information that ultimately isn't helpful for that thing that you're trying to do, that place you're trying to achieve? So careful for the yawning, okay? All right. So I want you to first write down this piece. You are 40% more likely to reach your goals if you write them down. If you knew that stat, give me a 1 in the chat if you're like, yep. And then give me a 2 if you did not know that stat. Okay. You are 40% more likely. And I think we sort of had some sort of hunch on that stat because it's why every January we're like, new year, new resolution, new big goal. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to do this. We're going to do all that, right? It's why it's sort of that driver of like, right. Goal setting is important. But I think the piece that many of us don't fully know and or commit to is this piece. Like physically writing down your goal every single day will change two things. It will change your own belief in the goal. So it make achieving the goal easier. And it will get you more committed to the goal. So instead of you kind of starting and losing steam come end of January, you actually become way more committed to achieving the goal. So we're going to talk about goals today. We're going to talk about revenue goals. We can slice and dice these goals anywhere you want, but I really want you to get into practice of taking, 30 seconds probably each morning to write down that goal. Physically write it down. Physically write it down every single day. And if you skip a day, just get back on like you're riding a bike. Like, oh, you know what? I forgot Thursday and Friday and we go on Saturday. Just get back up because I'm going to talk to you more about the data behind that piece. Okay. I want to know if you came into this year, 2022, with a big, clear, not even big, a big, small, medium-sized goal. Tell me two things. I want to know what that goal was. So for example, it could have been our organization is going to have $500,000 in donations come in, or it could be, we will reach $150,000 in revenue. We will like whatever it is. If you had a goal, tell me if you know that goal in the chat, give me a yes or a no. And if you're willing to share that goal, I would love to know what that goal is. Now, if it's not financial, it could have been something like this. I'm going to acquire, because sometimes we have some consultants on here. I'm going to acquire 10 new clients this year, 10 new clients. Like it could be that. But I want to know, did you have a goal for 2022? And how are you looking on it? Because what I see happen, and type it in the chat if you did or didn't, you can type in a yes or no. Here's what I think. Here's my thesis. Many of us had a goal January-ish of this year, and we kind of forgot. We kind of lose steam on it. Or another thing we do is we kind of shift and shape shift our goal. So when it gets hard, we're like, well, maybe not 10 new donors or 10 new clients or 10 new whatever. We're like, maybe 5. Okay, I'm going to go through the chat. So here's my theory. All the people in the chat kept an eye on their goal, right? So we got all yeses in the chat. So Lindsay said, yes, goal to raise 385K, made the goal. That's amazing. Let's see. Yes. Find a new home of operation from Tim. Yes. Okay. So we see a lot of yeses. So my hunch are my goal setters who reached the goal said yes. And the ones who didn't are like this. They're like, which is totally fine. Okay. Brittany says yes to develop a formal brand strategy. Okay. Well, I'm just thrilled that we have so many yeses. Okay. So my no's, I want you to just take note. If you're like, yeah, I don't know what my goal was. So I've been an entrepreneur since 2007. And one thing I know to be true is there was a couple of years, maybe around 2012, 13, I don't know, something like that, where I stopped writing down revenue goals. And guess what happened to my revenue? Flat, just stayed the same. Previous to that and after that, I started to get very clear on my goal. When you have a place, a beacon, a lighthouse that you're trying to achieve, and you practice achieving it, not just one day, one vision board, but you actually, stay the course, you're so much more likely to go there. Okay, get there. Okay, Heather says, I think my goal was status quo, keep it running. Okay, I'm glad you actually said that, Heather, because we're going to talk about setting goals in a second here, and I'm going to go back to that. So I want to share with you a recent study, and this was kind of amazing. This was about 2 groups of people. One group of people went to the gym, and they're weightlifting and doing a workout every single day or whatever the cadence of the workout was. And at the end of the study, they increased their muscle strength by 30%. Okay. That group, they went to the gym, they did their weights. Another group did not go to the gym. What they did was they visualized the entire workout in their head for the same period of time. Okay. So they didn't go to the gym, but they let's just say they just sat on the couch. And they were like, all right, now I'm doing leg presses. And now I'm going to do the bench. Now I want to do some curls. And they did that for the same cadence, the same frequency that the first group did, only they didn't actually lift a single weight. Okay. So at the end of this study, the group that went to the gym saw a 30% increase in their muscle strength. Makes sense, right? But the group, this is cool. The group that only did the workout in their head, they never lifted a weight, saw an increase of 13.5%. Okay, that's almost half as much as the people who lifted weights. Okay, because our brain is a weight, basically. Our brain can shapeshift towards our goal or away from our goal. Truly. Like if we want to bring it towards our goal, we really, really can. Heather, yes. Yeah, I want you to try that. I want you to really think about that. Like, and I'm going to give you some ways we can take that deeper. That's a pretty big deal. That's almost by half. And like no one had to put on any exercise pants. No one had to break a sweat. And yet they were stronger. How can that be? So for 2023, you get to decide, or maybe your board is going to help you. But I'm going to just say you get to decide what your goals are. You at least get to inform and help steer them, right? I want you to pick something that challenges you and that you believe in and that you're excited about. So Heather shared that her goal was status quo. So to keep it running, to keep the org running. I get it. I totally get status quo. And what I would challenge you for is, let's say status quo was a $500,000 operating budget, right? Something like that. I would say $1 million might seem so far away that you're like, too far. I can't even visualize that. It's like me going, I'm going to be a bodybuilder by the next time you see me. It's like too far a walk, right? But I want you, instead of going, and let's just do $500,000 next year. You know, it's going to be a recession. No. Let's just try and keep it status quo. No, I want you to pick a goal that stretches you. Maybe it's 650. Maybe it's 750. You get to decide. You also get to do the same thing, and it doesn't have to be with revenue. So we know we've got some development folks on here. So it might even be, you know, right now we have about 10 major gift donors. Next year, I want to get 10 more in at $10,000 or more. Like you get to pick what segment of your goal makes sense for your role and your position. Okay. Again, for my consultants, same thing. They might want to bring a certain level of clients or a certain retainer amount or something like that. Pick something that feels like a push. It's supposed to feel like a push. Okay. So inevitably, you're going to write down your goal and it'll be split one of two ways, especially if you push yourself. You may say to yourself immediately, so let's use Heather as an example. So Heather chooses her goal and she's like, that's not possible. That's going to be so hard. I can't do it. I don't have enough staff. I don't have X, Y, or Z. The economy is really bad. Like it's going to, all of that stuff will come up, like that chatter, right? And she may even have coworkers that will have a glass of wine and engage in that chatter with her, right? There's that. But I want you to think about too, what's the other side of that? The other side of that for me is, well, how is it possible that actually people, organizations, companies make money in a recession? Because it is possible. Because there have been companies that have created products that you and I enjoy because of a recession, right? Through the recession, people make money. So I want you to start thinking about the possibility of it versus the impossibility, how hard it will be, right? And when you pick a goal that just pushes you a little, that just nudges you forward, you can start to get there. And you can write a list. You can be like, all right, what are 10 ways this is actually could be possible for me? So I'm going to dive into, and we're going to circle back on that, what to prioritize. So as we look to next year, there's a lot of stuff I want you to stop doing, and there's a lot of stuff I want you to double down on. Okay. A few Friday nights ago, it was a Friday night, and normally I watch movies, the kids are asleep, and we watch movies, my husband and I think he had a boys' night, so I was all by myself. And guess what I did? I watched a 4-hour webinar with multi-million-dollar business owners, and they were talking about what's working, what's not. And I was like, yes, I'm all in. So I watched this webinar, and I'm going to share with you, I sort of put it through my filter, through my lens of working with you all and saying what here makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to share some of that with you. Number one is you have to prioritize being online. You have to. And you cannot do it in an arbitrary way. You cannot do it in a like, yeah, Christina, we've got a website. We've got our Facebook page. That is not what I mean. I mean, things need to be updated. I mean, if I land on each and every one of your websites right now, that it does not show some old information, right? And I see some nodding, that it also presents you, the brand, you, the organization, as you want it. Is that photo representative? Is that headline representative of you, of your mission, of who you serve? And is it compelling? Like, do I care? Am I going to land on it? I just went through these Google Analytics for one of my clients. And it was like, you look at the amount of people who land on your website and then ditch. They're like, nah, never mind, right? How do we get people in those first 7 seconds? So your website, your email, your social media channels. The best news I have for you is I'm not going to tell you on this to dance on a bunch of reels and do a bunch of videos and stay on social media and create all this content for 2023. I do not think that is how you reach your financial goal. It's not through a bunch of videos and reels dancing and things like that. Do you need a social media presence? 100%. But I don't want you to I tell my clients this all the time. If I'm looking at the pie chart of your week, I do not want a big slice of the pie called social media content creation. That is not a good use of your time. Okay. Do want you to post on social a couple times a week, once, twice a week, ramp it up during a campaign, and that's it. Set it and forget it a little bit. Okay. What I do want you to do, and if you get one thing from today's training, it is this: you have to email more. Email your list more. Whatever you're doing now, and tell me in the chat, how often are you emailing your subscribers, your database? How often are they getting an email from you? And Giving Tuesday does not count. So not that, but just it's February of next year. How often are they getting an email from you? Hey, every other week, monthly, about 20 times a year. Thomas, you're going to make me do math. Okay. Let's see, once or twice a month, every other week. At least once a month. Yeah. Okay. Every other week, once a month, something like that. Not much. Wendy says 6 to 8 times annually. No. So there was a time where I used to say, you know what, the minimum email once a month. That time is gone. The most profitable asset that you are underutilizing in your world, whether you're a for-profit or nonprofit, is your email list. Because tomorrow, if I can't get into my Instagram account or the algorithm changes or blah, blah, blah happens on Twitter, I have my database. I can reach you all and I can invite you to my world, right? It is how I reach my audience much more effectively. I get to control the levers on how I want to segment, how I want to filter, how often. It is such a valuable tool. And no one in our industry is utilizing email the right way. Okay. So no one has said in the chat too much, not one. And I have actually never met the person who's like emailing their list too often. Okay. Here's why emailing matters so much. It's such a great way to do a couple things. It's such a great way to reach your audience for free, aside from the fact that you're paying for your CRM, right? There's not some sort of, you're not paying for Facebook ads. You're not paying for Google AdWords. If I want to get in Brittany's inbox right now, I'm like, here, Brittany, come to this, hang out. Did you know about this, right? Second reason, it is such a great way to nurture and steward your audience, okay? How many people give one time a year, buy one time a year, and they forget about you until that next time a year, or they completely drop off altogether? I'm going to tell you a story. A few weeks ago, I was across town and I needed to buy a new concealer. And I buy this concealer, but I don't buy it online. I don't buy it at Sephora. I get it at a natural skincare store over near me. And I was like, you know what? I'm over here. I wonder if there's a natural skincare store over here. So I Googled. Sure enough, there was. I had driven by this shopping center a million times and I'd never noticed the store. So I'm like, all right, I'll go in there. I walk in, there's 2 salespeople. They're very busy. They both are helping people. They're like unboxing stuff. It was very busy, but they were really warm, really nice, acknowledged me right out of the way. And they were like, hey, we're really busy. Come. How can we help you? We'll be right with you. And then I kind of like looking around. I'm like, I am looking for this concealer. And they're like, oh, we have their product line, but they have supply chain issues. So we don't have any of their concealer right now. But that concealer isn't nearly as good as this concealer. And they're like, this concealer is so much better. And the way in which the sales girl said this was such conviction that had they had both in stock, I totally would have bought the one she recommended. Like, you know, when somebody's like, you need this, that you're like, all right, I'll try it. So I like kind of go look at it. And then she looks at me one more time. Again, she's still helping somebody. And she's like, your blah, 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 warm C3 color. That's your color. She's like, try that. And sure enough, she knew the color I needed. So they made the sale. I went in and I bought the concealer. That's it. It was a pretty good experience, but that was it. What happened in the next 7 days was fascinating. I was like, oh my gosh, they need to teach a masterclass in marketing. So again, I've never heard of this skincare store. So they had my email address and they put me through a new customer welcome series online. Okay. So I got an email from them like right away. And then I got something that was like, did you know you have 200 points waiting because now you're a new customer and here's what the points do. And then another one was just nurturing me, telling me a little bit more about their why, right? Their mission. I found myself there about a week and a half later, like in the same area. And I was like, you know what? I actually do legitimately need some sunscreen. So I was like, instead of going to my place that I usually go to, I'll go back there. So the girl comes in and she's like, listen, oh my gosh, yes, I've got your sunscreen, but we're also doing this holiday promo. And if you spend this, you get this. They made so much money off of me, completely unexpected, because they had nurtured me. I had such a great experience. I cared about them. Like I cared about their mission. They had incentivized me. It was like a win-win. I've now shifted where I shop. Not only did they get 2 sales off of me and way more than an initial concealer, they've actually made a long time customer out of me because of that nurture process. I liked it. I liked that they sent me probably 4 emails right out of the gate that I bought some sunscreen. They were having a party. And they sent me a couple of more emails. I'm like, yes, I feel seen. I feel part of this natural skincare community. It was a win-win. At no point did I say, this is too much. They shouldn't email me this much, because if they hadn't emailed me, I wouldn't have bought like 3 other things. And I felt the value because I got all these other free products. It was truly a win-win. But oftentimes, if I say to my clients, I want you to send 3 emails this week, they're like, no, I don't want to send 3 emails. The unsubscribes, Christina, will have too many, right? No, I can't do that. No, people won't like that. And I'm like, no, we're not sitting here. I'm not reading every one of Annie's emails. I'm not. I'm skimming a few, I'm deleting a few, and then I'm going to go all in on 1 or 2. So you have to keep that in mind as we are busy. And just like I didn't read all the emails that this store sent me, I read a couple and I was like, cool, I'm coming back. Okay, so I really want you to think about that. Lindsay says, do you consider email the same as digital newsletters, or should we be doing both? Okay. I'm going to jump down on this. This is from Trends, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it a little bit. So the days of what I would call a digital newsletter. So for example, January news, and it's like program 1, program 2, an update, a spotlight, an executive corner, where it's like long, like a newspaper. Those days have really shifted for shorter, more frequent emails. Okay. Shorter, more frequent. So I would do, Susan says, how many per week? I like once a week, but do not go from once a month to once a week. You kind of like, you want to wean yourself there and go in with a plan. And we'll talk about that more. So shorter, more frequent little pops. So I'd rather get a little pop of an update about one specific thing, right? More often than you fire hosing me on 5 program updates plus a call to action. And you want me to do this and that. Okay. So more often. Here's the trick with more often. And Susan, this is kind of where I'm cautioning you. Rather than going on this webinar and then going, got it, we're just going to write more emails. Amazing. I can do that. I want you to make sure that the emails that you're writing have a couple things in them. Number 1, they sound like you. And you can be you, your organization, you, your brand, you, your business, or you, if it's your first person point of view. But the point is that they sound like you are the authority, the expert in what you do. Otherwise, I don't want to read it. Otherwise, it's not interesting. Otherwise, I am going to unsubscribe, not a watered down version. So you can do kind of a quick check, like a gut check, where you're like, okay, is basically the content of this email something that another organization in our sector could have written, right? Is this like unique and different at all? Or is this approximately what everybody's saying about this cause, right? If that's the case, then that's kind of like, you're like, all right, I got work to do, right? I got work to do on finding my unique voice, right? The other piece of it is, and if you're like, oh, the unsubscribes, or, oh, we don't have that many people on our list. Number 1, you can grow your list. We can talk about that for sure. Number 2, the unsubscribes are a natural email list cleaning. I used to teach email list cleaning, and email list cleaning is actually really worth doing, where basically you're just taking the people who aren't engaging, opening your email for a certain period of time, and you're getting them off your list, which makes sense because as I do, I pay for my CRM. So I don't want to pay for people who are literally not opening emails. However, What the beautiful thing is about upping your frequency is that it's a natural email list cleaning, because anyone who's like, you know what, I want off this ride, I'm not that interested, I'm not going to buy or donate or support or give, right? They can just unsubscribe and that's fine. And it's a natural email list cleaning. Okay. Let's see. Tim says, can more often include a video occasionally? You can totally include videos in emails. Absolutely. Yeah. So your emails do not have to be like the same type of content weekly, right? 100%. You could have once a month, you have an email about this. You know, once a month on week 2 of the month, you sort of go on this, right? Where you create almost an editorial calendar, which is helpful for figuring out what those are. I mean, you could have the last Thursday of the month is always stories of impact and testimonials, where it's just spreading the love and it's like a feel good email. Like you can parse them up like that for sure. Okay. Let's see. Easy wins and strategies to start now. So number 1, shorter emails. That's the best news I have for you. Number 2, using your unique voice, making sure you're not watered down, that you actually sound like you. Number 3, this is a big one. Thinking like a successful entrepreneur, telling yourself it's working. One of the biggest things we do, and I see this in for-profits and nonprofits alike, is we're like, it's not working. It's hard. I have too much. I don't have enough time, right? And I'm going to walk you through why that's a problem. Okay. So in like psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, there's this idea of the think, feel, act cycle. So you think something, you're going to feel some type of way, and then you're going to act from that. Okay. So for example, there was something I had to do yesterday that was an internal business thing I had to do. I did not want to do it. I was like, I don't feel like doing it. It's boring. It wasn't quite bookkeeping, but like that, where it's like, I don't want to do this, but I needed to do it. Okay. It needed to be done this week. And I watched myself. I was like, God, it's going to take so long. Like, this is my chatter. It's going to take so long, you know? And I'm like, okay, all right. What am I feeling? I'm like, I'm feeling dread. All of those thoughts was pure dread. The action I would take from dread is I have pretty strong discipline in my business. So some people will feel those feelings and be like, I'm not doing it today, and just skip it, right? And put it on for tomorrow. I've been doing this a while. So the way that I work is I feel this way and I'm still going to do it. So what happens is I would still take the action and do all the work that I don't want to do, except I have a terrible attitude through it. And then the worst part is when I get it done, I would feel depleted instead of accomplished. I would feel totally drained. So before I started the activity, instead, I was like, okay, same activity. How do I want to feel? I was like, actually, if I can get this done, I think I can get it done in less than 2 hours. If I'm actually focused, if I'm not like wandering in and out of the room and going to get a snack and like really focused, I think I can do this. And I actually would feel accomplished. I would be glad that I got it done and happy to have just like get it off on Monday and be done with it. So I was like, okay, how do I do that? How do I make it fun? And for me, there's a couple of different rituals I have inside my business. 1 is my coffee. 2 is a couple of different playlists that are my kind of go-to hyped up playlists. I put those on and I was like, you know what? Challenge to myself. Can I do this within 2 hours of total focus time? And here's what happened. I stayed completely committed to it and was like, we're not going to do anything else. We're not checking email. We're just going to do this internal task. I finished it in an hour and a half. I'm excited I finished in an hour and a half. That was amazing. But here's the really cool thing is at the end of it, I had enough energy to keep working on whatever my day had ahead of it because I hadn't sat in like dread and blah and thick and hard that whole time. Okay. The action was the same, you know, and this is for all my development people. It's like, oh, I got to make the ask. I got to make a call. I got to do the hard thing. The action's the same, but the energy behind it is huge because of 2 reasons. 1 is because I think your outcome will be different. And 2, because of how you'll feel on the other side of it. Okay. So who has heard this before? And you can tell me actually, if you have 2 things. I want to know if there's a task you dread. Tell me that in the chat. If you're like, yes, mine is taxes or mine is, and I actually did this with taxes this year. I timed myself because this clearly is one of my things where I'm like, dread. And I said, how long will it take me from start to finish to do, yeah, Tim says accounting, to do my taxes. And I timed it and I was like, Christina, you were dreading 3.5 hours of work. Really? It was like such a small amount of time that I was like, I thought about doing my taxes for like 2.5 months. It was hilarious. So, okay. I see taxes. I see recruiting event sponsors. Yeah, that's a big one because you're like pitching people. Exactly. Contracts. Yes. Everybody has a thing. Making the budget. It's a big one. 100%. Okay. So Olympians, how many people have heard this before? They actually spend time visualizing getting the medal, visualizing crossing the finish line, visualizing completing the thing. Okay. And that's something that when they're training, there's so many Olympians that have done this. And when they interview, they're talking about how, like, I always saw myself at the finish line. I always saw myself there. And the data there is that it can improve your performance by 45%, like 45%. So for me, I was thinking about this. I'm like, all right, thinking about a gymnast. And for me, I think what a gymnast is doing is she's thinking about her floor routine and she's thinking about the steps to ace her floor routine all until she gets to that last piece, no wobbles, right? And she's picturing that and the medal going on her and her going up on the thing, right? On the podium riser. I don't know. Seeing yourself on the finish line is so important. It's important for a couple of reasons. One is because it makes that process of doing the hard thing easier. So doing the taxes may not feel like getting a gold medal, but the feeling of like, it's done. It's done. I did it. Or doing the big thing of asking for the sponsorships, asking the major donor for more, asking, right? Finishing. I think visualizing that donor saying yes with a smile is really important versus how you might feel if they're like, oh, I don't know, like whatever you're playing, right, out in your head, thinking about visualizing the yes, visualizing it going well. Because how many times do we visualize the worst case scenario? Like, I'm pretty sure we all do. Yeah. We always visualize the worst case scenario. So in the beginning, I was talking about you're setting your goals for 2023 and writing it down every day. So the next layer of that would be visualize that goal being done. It's done. So if that revenue goal is 25, 50% higher than this year, think, wow, I got to call my accountant and go, all right, we got to withhold some more. Or who are you going to call? You're going to call your board and say, we did it. Like, what is that gold medal moment that you can actually start visualizing, right? And when you get in the habit of doing this more than once or twice, then when you go do the hard thing, do that visualization first, and it makes it a little bit easier. Or it at least makes it a little bit more tolerable. Like, it's still going to be uncomfortable to make the bold, daring asks or to do anything that just feels like putting yourself out there. But at least your brain's like, oh, okay, that's why we're doing it. That's why we're doing it. It gets us one step closer. Okay. So we're going to start easy wins, visualization. Okay. Stop doing 3 things I want you to stop doing. First one, stop sounding like everyone else. Stop sounding like every other organization. I want you to do a little audit and be like, do we sound like the 10 other competitors or people in our sector, in our industry? It's really easy to look at other people's content, websites, appeals, direct mail pieces for 2 reasons. You can look at it and go, well, that's inspiration. Or you can look at it and go, yeah, we're not doing that and feel bad. Or you can look at it and go, all right, let me just replicate what they've done. They seem to be a little bit further ahead and we'll just kind of replicate that. No, what wildly attracts people to your organization is when you really step into your unique authority. So if you're a community-driven organization, tell me about that. Like, I want to know about that. If you're whatever it is you serve, stepping into that. And sometimes that means repelling some people, being willing to repel people, being willing to see those unsubscribes. Okay. Being willing for people to say, you email too much. All right. I can segment you out and put you on a different email list, or maybe you want this off this ride altogether. Getting people to, hear your unique why. Why are you part of this organization? Why? Like, really standing in that authority and point of view is really, really important. Okay. Under emailing, we talked about a bit. So everybody really needs to work up to the cadence of a weekly email. It's really, really important. So you can parse out that big monthly email into shorter bites. You could do that. You can create a short editorial calendar to help you go, okay, week 1 of the month, I tend to talk about this. Week 2, I tend to talk about this. Email more. And then when it's campaign time, so if you've got a spring fundraiser, spring campaign coming up, you've got to ramp up frequency. Whatever that number is, I like to say, why don't you double it? Like, I want you to feel a little uncomfortable by how much you're emailing on purpose. Now, you can segment out people. So you can segment out people that you're like, you know what, they get a call from me. They don't need to receive all the emails. You can segment out people who have made a gift towards that campaign. So you're not just inundating people, right? But I want you to really think about emailing more. Okay. There are so many opportunities that organizations have missed me because they emailed me one time and then they didn't email me again. There are other times when they reached out and I was like, yeah. And then my kid came in the room, I got distracted, and that was it. The other piece of it, and I think someone mentioned it in the chat, is text. Text is huge. Text is really important piece. It's sort of like the spouse to email, right? Again, that data is yours. So when you've got my phone number and you can text me, I think it's really important. I think it's something we're going to see in the industry become more and more important because you can reach me, but also you can reach a younger audience. It's probably not that engaged on email anyway, in a different way. It's about meeting them where they are. Okay. Meeting them where they are. And also, I told this story recently, but my daughter's school sent me, it was like 4 emails and 6 text messages to order school photos, which in a short period of time was a lot. But it wasn't until the 10th reminder that I was like, sale, I need this. Yes. And it's just simply because we're in a distracted society, right? Like we've got a lot coming at us and we're like, yeah, I'll get to that. And the fact that they were able to reach out to me in different forms did like get me to take action. Okay. Under asking is the last piece I want you to stop doing. So under asking can show up a couple of different ways. It is you're hosting that spring campaign and you're like, have a couple calls to action and that's it. You're making a couple calls, your voice kind of gets a little higher. And then you're like, no, if you could give today a gift. And things start to, and then you go in and you're like, well, I was going to ask for 5, but he was saying that this, so I asked for 2,000. That, stop it. It is not your job to decide what anyone can afford. It's not your job. It's not my job to decide what any single one of you can afford. It is my job to invite you in and say, this is what I've got. Do you want to be a part of this? This is why I think we're amazing. Join, like come hang out. And they might be a no. And sometimes a no is a no, not right now. I need to learn more. I want to hear more. Okay. So really, really important to stop under asking. I used to teach something called the rule of 7. The rule of 7 is just simply put that a prospective buyer needs to see a marketing message 7 times before taking action. So for example, I need to see that concealer 7 times online before I click add to cart sold. It might show up on a Facebook ad. It might show up on Instagram, right? Okay. I've seen, and like, hold on to your seats. The latest data on this is the rule of 18 times, which kind of speaks to my daughter, me and my own as the customer with my daughter's photos being ordered, right? Is they had to touch point Christina 10 times before I took action. Okay. So here's the thing that could either feel really, really overwhelming, me saying like, oh, you've got to reach out to your folks 18 times before they take action, or it could feel empowering. And here's how it would feel empowering. Oh, I can email more. Oh, I can send more text messages. I'm not bothering them. I'm offering them. I'm inviting them in. Oh, they are really busy. So just think about that piece. And the 18 can be nurturing too. It doesn't have to be, will you buy? Will you buy? Will you buy? Will you donate? Will you donate? Right? The 18 is like, let me tell a story. Let me show proof of concept. Let me share an impact piece. That can be little trickles of the 18. Okay. So if that surprised you, tell me a yes in the chat. Rule of 18, and maybe gave you a little bit of empowerment too. And the other kind of piece of this is you may have heard something called the forgetting curve. And the forgetting curve is just simply that you get new information kind of told at you, to you all the time. And that humans, we forget about 50% of new information within an hour of learning it. 50%. If you've ever listened to an audiobook, which I love to do, I think this is why I go back and re-listen to audiobooks that I enjoy a lot, because I'm like, what did I say? What was it? It was good. And then I'm like, let me go back and kind of, or they say like, write it down. Okay. And that goes up. So 50% within an hour of learning it. And then that goes up to 70% within 24 hours. Again, we are not annoying people by contacting them more. We're simply giving them more opportunities to be involved with your organization or your business. Okay. All right. Let's see. Yes. Empowering 18. Yeah. 18 times makes sense considering how many emails you get. Yeah. If you've ever been on like the GAP's email list, they have no problem emailing you a bajillion times, right? Because they're thinking we're having a sale and we want Christina to know about it. We're having this and we want her to know about it, right? They're not thinking we're asking too much. So take a nod from the for-profit companies and use that to your advantage, okay? All right, let's see. Some other pieces of what I want you to stop doing as best you can, because we're human. 1, stop spending any time or as very little time as possible telling yourself it's not working or it's not going to work or it's going to be too hard. Okay. Catch those, because like literally everyone thinks those thoughts. Stop spending too much time in self-doubt, meaning, oh, I need to ask somebody for advice, or I'm not sure I'm going to trust my own intuition on this, or I just need to, run this through another group of people to see what they think, or maybe somebody else is better to do this job, right? Self-doubt. Perfectionism. This is a big one, especially for people with boards, right? Well, let me just run this draft of this email through 16 people. No, we're getting it done. This is about speed. This is run it through Grammarly, run it through, create some sort of filter that you're like, we do this, and then we send it. Because efficiency is so important as you go into 2023. Okay. Efficiency is so key. You cannot send weekly emails and run it through 8 people and tell me you're not burnt out. Like, you will be burnt out, right? You've got to either do one or two things. I would say run it through one person or just run it through Grammarly, have a set of brand values, brand guide, and you go. And you go. You trust yourself, you write the stories, and you go. I do this all the time. I'm like, you know what? It was at 90%. Is it more important that I think about this story and really massage that tiny little point? Or did I run it through Grammarly? It's as good as I like it. It's not going into print. We're good. Okay. Last thing, criticism. Yes. Whether you're taking on your own self-criticism or criticism of others, really making sure that you're not letting that land on you. So when you do hear that feedback, which sometimes you will, saying, okay, how do we systematize this? What is this critique for? Is it for the layout? Is it for the visuals? Is it for the actual content? Is it true? And we go. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about this last piece, which is how do you make money? How do you grow your organization or your business in a recession without burning out? Because I think there will be opportunities to grow your business, to make more money in a recession and do it in a totally different way where you do burn out. Because I think all of us probably know how to do that really well. You work more, you take on more, you don't ask for help. And by the end, you're like, yeah, we grew and I'm exhausted. That is not what I want you to do. The first thing I want you to write down is the word partnerships. Sometimes when I say the word partnerships, people think that I mean like literal, I'm going to go into business with somebody. That's not what I mean. I mean like relationships. Okay. I got an email about 2 weeks ago from a former, I would say he was a coach inside a program I was in, Ryan. Ryan said to me, hey, Christina, I no longer work for this program. I'm looking for a part-time gig. Here's what I'm looking for. And he had a background in nonprofit and social impact. So that's why he reached out to me. And we always got along really well. And he's like, here's my resume. Let me know if you think of anything. And I was like, oh my gosh, he was an amazing coach. I'm like, somebody would be lucky to have you. So I posted on LinkedIn some information. And then about a day went by and it was like, I know who he needs to know. And it was a former client of mine. So I put them on an email together and she responded and she said, hey, we're not hiring right now, but your resume looks awesome. You know, if you want to schedule a call with me, like, here's my calendar link. And on Saturday, he sent me an email. He's like, I got the job. And I'm like, you got the job that didn't exist because she needed him. He knows a lot about what she needs. And I knew that. And that just goes to show you, like, that took me 2 seconds. It was just a moment, but that is relationships. That is relationships. He found these two people are going to make a lot of money together. And that makes me so happy because of him reaching out to me. I haven't talked to him since, I don't know, a year and a half, something like that. So who are those people? Every single person on this call has somebody in their network they have not done that with. And there is a lot of money hanging out in the universe that is just hanging out in the universe and waiting for you to make those connections, like waiting for those connections to happen. I read a book a year ago, and I loved the way this author put it. So he was talking about working your sphere. So if you've heard sphere of influence before, you could tell me in the chat, give me a yes. So it's just like your network. So who's in your network? So it's like, let's think about who's in my network. So it would be my friends, my neighbors, any memberships I'm in, alumni, activities, mom groups, parent groups. That's my network. Okay. And he was talking about building relationships. And he had this phrase, and it's like, write this down. It's so good. He says, he wants people when they're building their network. He says, I want you to go have lunch with somebody, go have lunch with Jen and say, who do you know that I should know? Who do you know that I should know? And it's such a powerful phrase. That's basically what my friend Ryan said to me, or my former coach said to me, who do you know that I should know, Christina? You're in this world. And I was like, Jen, you need to know Jen. She's trying to scale online. You know how to scale online. The two of you should know each other. Who do you know that I should know? So this phrase is so powerful. I imagine you can take a major donor to lunch and ask that same question. Will it be uncomfortable? I don't know. Maybe. Is it worth it? Totally. And the next layer of that, who do you know that I should know, is, do you mind introducing us? So if they're like, you got to know Jim. You should know Jim. Jim's cool. Jim's awesome. He's working on X, Y, and Z. You should know Jim. Well, I want to know Jim. Cool. Would you mind introducing us? Doubly uncomfortable? Maybe. I don't know. But maybe it just gets you to that riser, that gold medal moment a lot faster, a lot easier. The point of this umbrella term partnerships is just, how do you do this? How do you grow without working more? It is by getting help. It is by asking for help. Who do you know that I should know? Who are those relationships that you haven't tapped into yet because you haven't asked, or maybe you haven't asked very explicitly, versus like, yeah, do you know anyone that wants to hang out with our organization? No. Who do you know that I should know? This is what we're going after. This is what we're trying to do. Who's coming? The difference there is like really making sure you're not siloed off. All right. So that's a number one thing that I think you should do outside of emailing more, is developing those relationships. Who do you know that I should know? That will grow. If you only did one thing, those two things, you would increase your funding next year, period. If you did it once a week, you said, who do you know that I should know, to different people, you would grow. Okay. That's how you do it without feeling burnt out. When you're in your office, siloed off, making the calls, and it's just you, that's when that burnout, that overwhelm comes up. Okay. That's when you feel depleted. So think like a successful entrepreneur, think like an Olympian, right? Those are the pieces. Now, I'm going to go through my notes. I'm going to make sure I talked about everything. I want you to type in the chat other questions that you have as we wrap up. 2023 forecast. So we talked about what to do, what to stop doing. There are two ways you can work with me. So the first way is easy emails for impact. So if you're like, I need help with this, I don't know what to say. We start January 11th. It is 5 weeks. I'm going to teach you. I used to think I was a terrible writer. I used to make other people write for me. I used to really not enjoy it. And now I have more ideas than I have time, and it's really easy. So if I can do it, you could do it. I will teach you that. We will coach on it. It's 5 weeks. The curriculum is really simple and really cool. We're going to talk about your voice and your vision. So that piece where I was saying that you really need to stand for something and you need to find your authority and your expertise. And if you're like, I don't know what that is, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about storytelling at 2x the speed, because I do not want you to spend 4 hours writing an email. No 4 hours. And I'm going to type in the chat really quickly here, the link. Okay. Storytelling at 2x the speed, metrics that matter. So like that has changed. We didn't really go into that, but like what metrics do matter? Is it open rate? Is it click rate? Like what matters? We'll look at that. Formatting, do's and don'ts. Should it look beautiful? How many images, videos? What about that? We're going to talk about that. Compelling calls to action. So When do I say make a gift? Where do I say it, right? And launching, how often do I say it? Okay. So we're going to talk all about that. And I'm going to give you guys a special little bonus. For anyone that joins this week, you will get a 30-minute private coaching call with me. So if you join this week, you will get that. I see a couple questions coming in. Awesome. The other piece, and I'm going to drop in my link to my calendar if you're interested in learning about one-on-one coaching. So if you're like, okay, we need help for 2023, but I think we need more than email. Like, tell me more. If you're thinking about what does overall growth look like online, fundraising, marketing, messaging, then you can work with me one-on-one with that. The first step to learning about how I can help is booking a consult call. So I'm going to drop in that piece. If you have never texted donors, what is the best way to approach so that, and can you recommend some companies that will help nonprofit? There's lots of different ones out there. I'm pretty agnostic on a text company. You have to get consent. I should say this for email too. So for example, if somebody's like, I have this Excel doc of emails that it's cool, you can email them, it's for my old company. You need to get consent for both. So people have to opt in for consent to be on your email list. Everybody who's on this, for example, when you signed up for the webinar or when you signed up for my list, you probably signed up for a webinar or some sort of free offer of mine, like a calendar, a download, or a PDF. That was when you raising your hand, I will join Christina's email list. The same thing needs to happen for texting. And usually it's just a quick way to do it. Like you can say to your list, like text to this address to join our text messaging list. So there's some really simple ways to do it. You just want to make sure that you opt in. And that frequency, I would do the faucet on texting different. That strategy is going to be different. I don't think you need a weekly text to people. I see it more of ramping up for a campaign, ramping down, ramping up, a little bit more of a peak and valley. So are you ready to think like an Olympian, ready to achieve goals and not just set them? I'm with you. I'm with you and I'm cheering you on. I want to invite you to rate and review today's podcast. It would mean the world to me. Share it on social media, wherever you like to hang out, and let me know what resonated with you the most over on Instagram at Splendid Consulting. There are 2 ways I mentioned you can work with me on this class. The first that I mentioned was my program, Easy Emails for Impact. Go to splendidcourses.com/easy emails to join that program. I'll also link to it in the notes here. The second is by booking a discovery call with me to find out more about my smart growth method for one-to-one coaching. You can go to splendidatl.com/book to sign up for a free discovery call. All right, y'all. I'll see you next time. Think you've reached out to everyone in your network? Are you out of ideas to get noticed and get funded? I hear you. That's why I'm giving you a chance to steal my prospect list. Yes, you can generate leads for your nonprofit or impact-driven business. Grab my mini training and list delivered to your inbox instantly. Go to splendidcourses.com/prospect.